Hi there, and welcome to University High School's summer math work. Today we're going to start off with our first lesson for our first unit. We're on Unit A here, and today's lesson is going to be on rates. Okay, so rates is something that you should have learned probably back in 6th, 7th grade a little bit, so I'm going to review some of these things here. First of all, because it's the definition in the box, there's a ratio. So a rate is a ratio that compares two quantities with different kinds of units is called a rate. When a rate is simplified so that it has a denominator of 1 unit, it's called a unit rate. And so today's lesson is really looking at how do we determine or write rates when looking at either word problems or other types of problems here. This is a type of problem where when you look at the examples, you're going to recognize that essentially you're doing a little bit of division, right? That's how you're going to do the simplification of some division. And in doing that, we well know that you can use a calculator to do a lot of these problems. But what we want to see is, are you able to work them out longhand without a calculator? So for the first example, it says that Alita drove her car 78 miles and used 3 gallons of gas. What is the car's gas mileage in miles per gallon? Now this phrase here is critical because this tells us how we're going to set up our rate. We're going to set it up with miles per gallon. And if we recall, this little line here essentially works like a dividing, right? Like a division sign. This is going to be miles divided by gallon. So in this case here, we're going to take the numbers they gave us, 78 miles and 3 gallons. And you can see we're going to use 78 miles and 3 gallons to write it out like this. This is turning the rate into a fraction essentially, 78 divided by 3. Now in the example here, they show you, well, we're going to divide the top and the bottom by 3, right? Because 78 divided by 3 will give you something. 3 divided by 3 is 1, so that's how they get that 1 right there. And so you have 78 divided by 3. Now again, I could use a calculator, and we could do 78 divided by 3, and get an answer of 26. But in your case here, we want to make sure that we know how to do that. So we're going to do 78, and we're going to divide it by 3. And so the way I ask ourselves, 3 goes into 7, 2 times 3 is 6, subtract there, 7 minus 6 is 1, bring down the 8, we have 18. How many 3's are in 18? It's going to be 6. 6 times 3 is 18. And I subtract, no remainder. So we end up with certainly 26. So we end up with 26 miles per 1 gallon. That's the simplified form for this rate. Now because we got down to 1, we would call that a unit rate. So the unit rate here for Alita's car is 26 miles per gallon. So essentially, we're taking two numbers and we're going to divide them in order to determine what the rate is going to be for each problem here. This is an example of a word problem. There are others that are not word problems as well. Okay, let me move down here on my little example sheet for you real quick. Let's look at some that are not word problems for now. So we have find each unit rate and round to the nearest hundredth if necessary. Okay, so again, these are just examples. Your homework stuff comes up in a second, so if you're new to this, here we go. When it says nearest hundredth, quick little review. Okay, if I have a number, let's say 0.0.1234, okay, helps to know my place value. If I'm going to round things to the nearest hundredth, this is my tenths, this is my hundredths, which makes this my thousandths. So to round it to the nearest hundredth, the hundredth, which is right here, I'm going to have to at least do the math work out to the thousandths place and then use that number to round up or round down, depending on what that's going to be. If you recall, 0 to 4, we're going to round down, which means just kind of chop off the extra part. If it's a 5 to a 9 in the thousandths place, then we'll take that next number and we'll go up by 1. Okay, so here's our first one. It says 18 people in 3 vans. So essentially we're talking about how many people per van. That's the information we wanted to find out. That's the rate we're looking for. And this one says that it's a unit rate, so that tells us we're probably looking for something out of 1 if possible. So in this case, we had 18 people in 3 vans. So again, that becomes a division problem. This becomes 18 divided by 3. Now if you get confused with the math, here's what I think about. I used to coach wrestling, right? A long time ago, and the person on the top in a wrestling match is usually winning. So that means they get to win and live in the big house. So the 18, the guy on the top winning, gets to live in the house. This person lost, he gets to sleep outside with all the pets. Alright, so 3 and 18. So how many 3s are in 18? We would say that there are 6. 6 times 3 is 18. We subtract, we have 0. So our unit rate for this one would be 6 people per van, if we were to write that out longhand. Okay, that kind of makes sense there? Alright, let's try another one. Let's look at number 4 right here. Just do a couple of examples, then we'll look at the homework. So 8 hits in 22 games. So here we're going to be comparing how many hits per game. And in this case here, the numbers they give us is 8 hits per 22 games. So let's work this out. Okay, so the guy on top gets to live in the house. The guy on the outside's here. So in this case, 22 doesn't go into 8, does it? Right? So I'm going to need to add a decimal point there. And I just add a few zeros just to get myself started. I don't know how many I'm going to need, but I like to put them there just to hold the place. So first thing I want to do is take my decimal point and put it on top of the house right away. It's like my satellite dish, so I can get good reception for my TV. So I want to put that up right away because that's important to me. Alright, 22. The number 22 does not go into 8 at all. There are no 22s inside of 8, so we'll put a 0 right there. How many 22s are in 80? Well, if I think about this as about 20, 20 times 4 gets me to 80, but I know I'm bigger than 20, so it's going to be less than 4. So let's start with 3. So 3 times 22 is going to be 66. So now I'm going to subtract. I'm going to borrow right here, make that a 7, make that a 10. 10 minus 6 is 4, 7 minus 6 is 1, so it's smaller than what we're dividing by, so we're in good shape. We'll bring the 0 down there. How many 22s are in 40? Again, if I estimate and think about that being as 20, I would think 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120, 140. So 7 gets me 140, but it's bigger, so I'm going to go with 6 again. So 6 times 2 is 12. Carry the 1. 6 times 2 is 12, plus 1 is 13. We subtract that, and I need to borrow. 10 minus 2 is 8, and then we have 0 there. We'll bring this 0 down there. Alright, so once again, how many 22s are in 80? We had that before. We said 3 to get to 66, so we'll say 3 again, and we're at 66. We subtract, we already know we're going to get 14. Now, I don't need to keep going, it's going to repeat itself for a long time. And again, if I was using a calculator, we would say that 8 divided by 22 is going to give you this long repeating decimal, 0.36, 36, 36, and it just goes on and on and on. You can see on my calculator, it's already starting to round things up just to chop it off because I ran out of space on the screen. Okay, so in this case, to round, we said if we're going to round to the nearest hundredth, which is right here, I need to look at the last one, thousandths place, and decide if it's between 0 and 4 or 5 and 9. Because it's between 0 and 4, I can then just not worry about it and ignore that, and we would say that the answer is going to be 0.36 hits per game. So in this case here, the person gets 0.36 hits per every 1 game. So they're not getting a hit a game, right? We can see 8 hits in 22 is not even getting 1, so it's 0.36 or 0.36 hits per game for the unit rate in that case there. So again, just make sure you're looking at the right numbers and you're doing the division right. One thing you might want to consider doing is making sure that your answer is right by just running through a calculator at the end. This is a great way to use a calculator to check your work to see if you're understanding it the right way. Okay? Once you feel like you got the hang of it, then you're good to go. All right, so we're going to pause right here, and then you're going to work on your homework for tonight. All right. All right, let's take a look at your homework for tonight, which is again on rates. And again, you can simply use a calculator to check your work. We know you can use a calculator to do the work, but we want to see, can you do it without the calculator? So again, calculator, it can be your friend, but let's work on, can we do the math? All right, so I'm going to do a few sample here. We have number 1, 7, 11, 17, and 13. Those are the ones I'm going to give solutions for. The rest you can use a calculator to check if you like. So for number 1, the first one, we have $112 in 8 hours. So we're comparing dollars per hour. And in this case here, we have 112 divided by 8. So again, the person on top gets to live in the house. And we're going to put the 8 on the outside. So 8 goes into 1. The first one here is 0 times. You don't have to write a 0, but you can. 8 goes into 11 1 time. So 1 times 8 is 8. We're going to subtract. 11 minus 8 becomes 3. Bring the 2 down. 8 goes into 32. I think about my times, right? Or multiplication facts. 8, 16, 24, 32. Goes into 4 times. 4 times 8 is 32. Nice and even, no remainder. So that's great. So for the first one, we would say that it is going to be, we're comparing dollars per hour. So it's $14 in 1 hour, because we're making them all a unit rate, if you recall. So we're going down to 1. So it's $14 in 1 hour is my solution for that one there. You could write it as $14 per hour, something like that. Depends on what kind of solution you're looking for there. All right, that's my unit rate for number 1. Let's take a look at number 7. Okay, number 7. And that says 6 eggs in a day. So for number 7, we're comparing eggs in a day. Looking for the unit rate for how many eggs are there in 1 day. We can already see that there's 6 eggs in 7 days, which means there are less eggs than there are days, which tells me I'm going to have a number that is going to be less than 1, right? It's going to be smaller than 1 because just how it works out. So let's write our numbers down here as a fraction. We have 6 eggs in 7 days. So again, we'll do the math. 6 divided by 7. And to help you out here, what I like to do is put my decimal point, add a couple zeros. I usually do about 3. And I put the satellite dish on top of my house right away just to get the problem started. So now I'm kind of organized and I can see how far I go. I may not have to go out that far, but let's just see. All right, how many 7s live inside of 6? 0. How about 7 into, look at 60. Well, think about your 7 multiplication table. 7 times 8 is 56. So that gets me closest to 60 without going over. So 60 minus 56 is going to be 4. We'll bring a 0 down here, so I'm at 40. I know 7 times 6 is 42. That's too big. So I'm going to do 5. So 7 times 5 is 35. We'll subtract. So 3, 10 minus 5 is 5. 3 minus 3 is 0. So now we'll bring down this 0. 50. And I know 7 times 7 is 49. So I'll put that right there. And we have 7 times 7 is 49. We subtract, we have 1. And I can stop here with the math because remember, we're going to round it to the nearest hundredth, right? And the hundredths place is here, which means I need to look at the thousandths place and decide, is it between 0 and 4, in which case I just ignore it, or is it between 5 and 9, in which case I need to take the number next door and go up by 1. In this case here, it's a 7, which means I look next door, and I'm going to make that one go up by 1. So we're going to write 0.86, and this is going to be eggs per day. All right, and again, I could use a calculator to double check that. I could do 6 divided by 7, and when I do that, I can see that I get 0.8571. And you can see our answer here, we'd stop at 8.857. So we're good, and we're going to round that up to the nearest hundredth by going up 1 there, from a 5 to a 1. All right, up 100 technically. Okay, let's take a look at number 11. Number 11, we have dollars for $3 per pound is what we're comparing here. Dollars per pound. So in this case here, we have $8.43. I'm going to use it as a number for now, for 3 pounds. So there's my fraction. So I like this one because we have a decimal already in our numerator. So we'll write 8.43 divided by 3 divided by our denominator. The decimal's already there, so let's put the satellite dish on top of our house here. I might want to add a 0 just because, if anything, I may have to go out to the thousands place in order to round. I don't know yet, but let's just see. So, how many 3's live inside of 8? We would say 2. 2 times 3 is 6. We subtract. 8 minus 6 is 2. We bring down the 4. 3 times what gets you close to 24? We say 8. 8 times 3 is 24. Subtract, we have 0. Bring down the 3. How many 3's are in 3? 1. 1 times 3 is 3. And we're good. That's all there is to it on that one. So we'll stop there because there's nothing else to divide. So we would say, in this case here, $2.81 per pound. That's usually like a cost if you're doing like food at the grocery market or something like that. So it's $2.81 per pound is how you'd write that one there. All right, let's look at number 17. All right, so for 17 it says, how many pay raises in 3 years? All right, so we're looking at how many raises for 1 year. And once again, we can see there are less raises. There's 2 raises in 3 years, which means the number is going to be less than 1 once again. So as a fraction, we write this as 2 raises in 3 years. And I'll write it as a division problem. 2 divided by 3. We'll put a decimal there. Put my zeros there. Put my satellite dish up on top, so I'm ready to go. 3 goes into 2 0 times. 3 goes into 20 though 6 times. So 6 times 3 is 18. We subtract, we end up with 2. So we had before. Bring down the 0. All right, we already know 3 goes in there 6 times. So we're going to keep this. You can see this is going to be a repeating number. It's going to continue to be 20 minus 18 and 2. So we're going to keep going, right? So now I look at the thousands place and decide is it between 0 and 4, in which case I'd chop it off. But it's actually between 5 and 9, so I'm going to take this next number and round it up 1. So we would say 0.6, 1 more than 6 is 7 raises per year. So 0.67 raises per year. Alrighty. Perfect. Let's do one more. Let's look at that word problem. Okay. So the word problem for today, I wanted you to choose the better unit price. Now for prices, if you're looking for a better unit price, you want to get the cheapest. You don't want to spend a lot of money. That makes it a better price. So keep that in mind. So we have 2 unit rates we're going to find. We're going to find the first one for $4.99 for 6 cans, and then we're going to find $7.99 for 10 cans. All right. So first I have $4.99 for 6 cans, and I'm comparing that to $7.99 for 10 cans. Because I want to find the best price, I want to find the one that is the cheapest, the lowest, the least value. So here we're going to take our 4.99 and divide that by 6. Satellite dish on top right away. 6 goes into 4 0 times. 6 goes into 49. So I'm going there about 8 times. 8 times 6 is 48. We subtract and we have 1. Bring down the 9. And 6 goes into 9 about 3 times. So we have 18. with one remainder. Now just hang on right there for a bit because we're looking for the cheapest price. So let's see how much further I need to go out. Let's start with this one over here. Here we have $7.99 for 10 cans. Satellite dish on top. 10 goes into 7 0 times. 10 goes into 79 7 times. Wow, look at that. We already know which one's a smaller number, don't we? We sure do. I could bring it down just to finish it out. 10 goes into that one. 9 times for 90. But we can see we have two numbers here. We have a 0.83 and we have 0.79. This one is the smallest one, which means it's going to be the better price per can because it's less expensive. All right, that's really it for the day. For the other ones, you can use a calculator to check them out and see if you get it. Again, simple little just skill here on working out rates. Have a great day. See you next time.